Hi, I'm Corey.
Hi, I'm Tess.
Welcome to A Lovely Place.
We're so glad you've joined us as we invite Jesus into the midst of our lives, learning, and laughter.
We hope this podcast can encourage your heart and make you smile today.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, how are you today?
Hanging in there.
Good.
Yes.
I'm glad.
Yes. We are recording. This is episode 51.
Yeah, we're
And
getting older now.
Right? Over the hill. No. But it is currently the beginning of June, but I think that people will be listening to this episode probably the middle of July or something like that. So happy summer. Yeah, I'm hanging in there. I am ready for school to be done. We already talked about that last episode. That's like that's right in my face all the time. So
Right. Because it's a little bit of a season to get a lot. I was listening to Kendra Adachi and her current episodes of how to get ready for summer or something like that. I was listening to part of it, and sometimes I'm like, I just need a little pep talk from her.
Right?
And she was talking about routines and things, and it's just good to revisit that. So I was looking through our other episodes as we were saying that, and we mentioned Kendra Adachi a lot because that was one of the first books we reviewed or went through or talked about, whatever we do on this podcast.
We featured
it. So I just think I love how it all builds together, like finding rhythms, and then now we're finding our people in chapter 4 of Jenny Allen's book. Find your people.
Find your people. Yes. Yeah. I sure hope I can find my people, you know? I mean, I feel like I have my people, but sometimes it's clunky. Like, that sounds terrible.
No, it's in different seasons and moments that it's like you don't have or whatever. We need a village of people, and that is always coming and going because people come and go. Different things happen.
Yes. Well, and I think that we talked a little bit about in last chapter about how we have this ideal of like this one best friend that kind of like checks all the boxes, which like that's a lot of pressure for a person, you know? So I think I've been coming to terms with, like, I've probably realized it for a long time, but I think in my heart, I'm coming to terms with, like, that isn't sustainable necessarily, you know? So I was telling my friends at Mom's group yesterday that I always feel weird, like, should I say names on the podcast? I don't know. I didn't ask them. Anyway, this is mostly a me confession here. So
friend X and friend Y.
Right?
We love you.
I was telling them about this, like because we do a devotional. It's a Francine Rivers, like, it's like nature psalms or earth psalms. Anyway, we read one each week at Mom's group. And the one last week was talking about the redwoods and that they have really shallow root systems that go like 100 feet in every direction. So basically the redwoods, they're so tall, but they become interconnected with each other. And that's where their strength comes from. So if they were to stand alone, they would fall down. But because all their roots are like intertwined is the reason why they're able to grow so tall, which I would not have thought. I would have thought they had really deep roots. But anyway, she was talking about the importance of community and that we're not made to do this alone. And I'm like, okay, God, apparently you're like trying to tell me something. To me. Gosh.
Like I asked you to.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So I told them, I was like, okay, so I've been trying to like incorporate friendship with tons of people in my life. And I was like, it's not really working. Like, hey, maybe we can make this work with the three of us. Like, can we set up a regular time that we're like, I mean, we get together every week for Mom's group, but where we're doing something like kid free, where we can connect and like have those conversations that you can have when you're doing something side by side with someone, you know?
Maybe eat some key lime pie.
Oh, right?
I have memories of that.
Yes. And so I was like, I've been going through this process with my counselor that kind of started with the Famous at Home book, where we were talking about values and of what are my values.
Yeah.
He wanted me to get down to my top 3. That's really hard. I haven't made
Especially
that yet.
was it a list of 100 things or something? That was
Yeah,
a
100.
lot. Yeah.
But I made it down to 10. I feel like that's
Nice.
an accomplishment right there.
Good job,
And
friend.
thank you. And one of mine is adventure.
Okay.
Another one of mine is intentionality.
Yes.
And we've been talking about how he wants me to get to my top 3 values, because if you're not living out your values, then you feel dissatisfied. And that's one of the things that I always struggle with, is feeling dissatisfied. And we've talked about, I'm always like, will this ever end? Like, will I ever not feel this way? Because it's frustrating to me. Like, I want to be content with things, but I'm always like, what's the next thing? And so he was like, if you're not living out your values, that is something you're going to be feeling. Are you breathing?
I think we need a breath.
Deep breathing.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so adventure is one of mine. And let's be honest, when you're doing school drop-offs and pickups, you have 3 kids, like they need to go to the bathroom all the time. Sorry, I'm in the midst of potty training. They need to eat every day, 3 times a day, or like 7 times a day, I feel like sometimes. Adventure is not something that comes across my plate, my plate, whatever. It's just not something that happens. So if my value is adventure, one of my values is intentionality. I'm like, okay, I need to be intentional about having adventures. So I was like, okay, friends, like, I was like, we can talk about frequency, but let's take turns where one of us will choose the thing that we want to do. And it's maybe a thing that we wouldn't do on our own. It might be a thing that the other people don't like or enjoy, but we're going to do it together anyway. And then the next time someone else will get to pick, and we will just do this. Like,
so is the adventure like a experience, activity? What does adventure mean to you?
It can be anything. Adventure to me is like getting to try a new restaurant that I wouldn't normally go to, or go to a place like a landmark that, if I'm just in transit, like, I'm not going to just go stop somewhere. I'm the kind of person, if I'm going somewhere, I want to get there and be there. I'm not very good at like the spontaneous, let's stop here, kind of a thing. So, I have to plan that. So anyway,
I
I'm
need
like,
my planned adventure.
Yes!
I need the route.
Yes. So I'm like, okay, let's do this. So on Saturday, we're going to go to a lake, and we're going to go spend time at the lake, and we might do art while we're at the lake. We might just sit and eat food. I don't know, but we're going to a lake. So I'm like, okay, this sounds fun and exciting. It's a way to get some me time where I'm not like taking care of all the people, and I can connect with my friends. And that sounds like that will be fun and fill a couple of my value boxes. So
nice.
I'm excited. This book has encouraged me to try something different. So,
well, that's good.
There you go. I feel like I was just on a gigantic rant. So
we're here for it. We're here for it. Because I think what can we learn from that? Finding out what we value and then making that be important, right? Like,
yeah.
So maybe somebody else listening doesn't need adventure or not. And then I approached adventure in a different way, because as you were talking, I was remembering I would make an adventure walk in our backyard in Battleground to Frog Pond, we call it.
Yes.
And it was just a hole that somebody had dug, and they threw stuff in it. It was very not glamorous, but we encouraged the boys and their imaginations to create this whole world. And it was just a little bit of a green space between the roads.
And they still have like so many good memories of that.
Yeah.
Like, that is still such a good memory.
So that was making me go, because sometimes I just like to drive home a different way or something. So I was wondering if that would add some adventure to your boring car ride. Like, I'm going to drive on this road today.
I try
and
that.
I'm gonna
the
go
road
like
construction here is nuts right now. So I'm like, oi. But yes, I do. Yes, right. I do take those little
bringing adventure into the monotony is
Right.
is helpful.
We adventure to the library quite often too, which feels
that's good.
nice.
Yeah. It's like, because I think, like, how often do we not encourage our imagination when we get older, right? Like,
Yes.
and even our
Yes.
kids, I feel like that's a skill that's being lost into screen time and video
Yes.
games, where someone else's imagination is taking the place of your own.
Right?
So we need to
goodness.
find the frog ponds,
You're
friends.
speaking my language here. Imagination is also one of my values as well,
Oh,
one of
there
my
you
top
go.
10. So I think that's why I love being friends with you. I have great very fond memories of when you used to come over and you could tell I was having like a day and you would be like, hey guys, let's play Tickle Monster or whatever,
Okay.
and would just like play with my kids. That was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. That just reminded me like what Jesus
Yeah.
would be like if he come to my house when I'm having a bad day. He'd be like,
Aw.
kids, let's go play. Like,
Yeah, let's
Mom
do a
needs
different
to
game.
take a breath.
Yeah. She needs to go to the bathroom by herself.
Right.
Because that's what's happening. So
Yes.
and I think that's the challenge too, of like we were talking in the last episode, of having our inner circle where we have that deep connection. But then I
Yes.
feel like this book is challenging us to create that village. You know, like it takes a village. And so some days you need
Yes.
a village person. Village people, come
Village
play with my
people.
children.
Yes.
YMCA.
Costumes are encouraged.
Hey, that makes it worth it if you have to make a Halloween costume, right? Like, whatever your opinions
Yes.
are on Halloween, we haven't embraced the excitement of the costume, and Riker already has his costume planned for next October. So that's like, 6-7 months in advance from when he started this. And it's Marty McFly's future.
Yay! Back to the
So,
future.
yeah. So we've I've jumped in with him and helped him create a fun thing, and so he gets to wear that, and he even put his own money in it. So
That's exciting.
but back to our other topic of like small groups.
Yes.
And community, and we won't be perfect, and all these things that Jenny brings up, and I'm challenged in. When we moved to Spokane 2 years ago, we were like, all right, we're going to jump in. The church we started was called Connection Point Church. It still is called that because we're still there. But they have connection groups. And so we're like, oh, we're going to jump in and host, like kind of like feet first. So I, again, related to Jenny Allen, as she's like, okay, I'll say yes to this. Like, what are we doing? But the challenge that I've had is the nature of this season of this connection group in our house has evolved and changed. Like every 6 months, it feels like there's something that has made the group dynamic totally different than before.
Okay.
And so I feel like it's just taken a lot longer to get any traction, to feel like, oh yeah, I have some deep connections. Because I don't know if it was in this chapter or whatever one, but it takes like 200 hours.
Whew. Wow. Yes. I remember when she's talking about that.
When we were figuring that out, 2 hours a week, once a week, give or take, it was like, oh, we're halfway there. Like, okay. Like,
yes.
So I just was that was reminding me of this is important, and it takes time, like more time than I think. Like time is a weird thing, because I feel like as I'm getting older in my 40s now, things seem to take me longer. But then my counselor was reminding me, but you didn't have children for a long time. And when you have children or child, however, I don't know why I feel like I'm not just saying children, but I want to be like everybody else. Anyways, what we're investing in our kids.
Yeah.
It's a different, I don't know, it's just a different energy. Things take longer, it feels like.
Yes.
Or other things that I could do before. Now I'm also doing these other things. So
yes,
you could look at me. I'm putting my hands together, and now we have a mess of fingers, not just one hand, right? Like it's like lots of. So,
well, and it makes me think of. It makes me think of, as you're walking somewhere by yourself, it's easy to quickly walk somewhere by yourself.
Oh,
but when you're walking with kids and you're holding their hand, or sometimes you're carrying them, right? Or you're making sure that their shoes stay on, because shoes fall off a lot when they walk, I guess. it takes longer to get places. So that totally makes sense. Like it will take you longer to reach your destination.
Yes, even like holding Riker's hand, he still somehow circles around me and I'm tripping. And I'm like, what is
Yes.
happening?
Like,
And so
how is this happening?
I'm praying for spatial awareness for him.
Oh, friend. Remember that conversation we had yesterday where I was like, I used to tell myself that this won't be a struggle in 5 years. Like, this won't be a big deal in 5 years. And then we're finding out with one of our children, oh, that was a false statement to myself. I lied to myself.
You lied. Well, things did progress. It's just different than
It's
you
true.
thought, right? Like
It's
there
true.
is improvement. There is
Yes.
growth.
Yes. There's just been a lot of regression lately, which is like,
Yeah.
oh, it
Some
makes me feel like I'm
lava
walking through mud.
goes slow and some goes fast, right? We're still a volcano. I don't know if that's helpful.
Well, it makes me think of popcorn, right? All the
there you go.
kernels pop at different times. So there we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Put butter on it and they taste really good.
Yeah.
So we just need more butter, friends, and we need a village.
Oh, so I was interested in what Jenny was talking about in this chapter. She uses this example of when they moved to Dallas, she reached out to this friend that was like a camp counselor when she was younger, but not much older than her. So as adults, they were still in the same peer group.
Yeah.
And the friend invited her to be part of their life group and was like, you've heard about the life groups here, right? Like they're for life. Like they commit for life. And I was like, what does that even look like? So I would love to find out more about like, how does this work? How do they do this? Because that sounds intriguing to me. Mm-hmm. It just makes me laugh because Jenny was like, she immediately was like, no, thank you. Like that did not sound intriguing to her. But I related to this because she said, I wanted friends, but I also wanted some time to be sure that we were throwing in with the right people. Mm-hmm. Coming off some friendship failures in Austin, the mere mention of lifelong commitment made me reflexively step back. And I think besides you, I don't feel like I've had any of those crazy, like, disappointment moments in our friendship.
Wait, but what?
But there were some friends that we made here when we first got to Battleground that like made it feel like, oh, this is we're close friends. We're sharing all the things. And then they just dropped off the map in my life, like stopped talking to me. And so I think I feel a little bit like Jenny there, where it's like, there's a little bit of like apprehension when it comes to diving in with people. Mm-hmm. Because I'm like, what if they decide to just drop off the map? And then that's painful. But like we talked about in last chapter, people disappoint us, but God can hold our expectations. So I'm like, okay.
Well, and then that part helps me too, because it's like I also disappoint people. So it wasn't just like people are disappointing me. It's like, oh no, you're also in this boat.
Right.
So that was freeing for me to be like, okay, I'm not going to do it perfect. They're not going to do it perfect, but there's hope because hopefully, and that's another part she was like talking about, like finding the people. So I feel like in a church small group, there's some common values. You're seeking after what Jesus has. So that is like you're being melded together with people that share that viewpoint. So I feel like that is a little more helpful in starting like some of the questions are, even if you don't agree on everything or your experiences are not the same, there's a common ground that you're starting from.
Yeah.
That I think is important. Still scary though, because it's still people involved.
Right?
And opportunities to lots of ways that can go.
Yes. It's so true because people are not perfect, right? Like,
No.
well, and she talks about like we don't like that the Bible gives us a framework of what kind of people we should be looking for to be
Yeah.
investing deeply in our lives,
Right.
but that doesn't require perfection. And she was talking about some of the things that it does that we should look for are people who are available,
Yeah.
humble, transparent. And she talks about, you know, a verse, I would have to look it up, but she one of the quotes that I remember, she says, is in other words, people who are comfortable in their sin, people who mistakenly believe that they don't need to change, those should not be the ones who make up your inner circle.
Right.
And so, like, not that we shouldn't associate with people like that, but they're not going to be the people who invest into our hearts, you know.
Yeah.
And that just reminds me of like the verse about guarding our hearts, you know, like, so it does kind of require some amount of vetting for the people who are going to be the ones that speak into who we become, you know.
Right. And we're not going to make all the right choices right off the bat. You know, like it's going to take a
Right.
little, for lack of a better word, trial and error. Like,
Right.
this season has been helpful having a counselor of trying to feel like I can just say whatever I need to say in that moment. Like it's been helpful while trying to make friends because I feel like then there's a safe place for me to just go bleh, and I'm not like trying to edit and trying to be like, okay, where are we at? And are we leveling together in vulnerability or
Yeah.
not? And did I get that wrong? And sometimes I feel like I did. And then it's like, well, releasing myself from that, like, okay, well, I was coming from a place of an intense desire to get to know someone and be known. And so it was like, well, maybe I did that wrong. But in doing that, it's like you have to put yourself out there if you're ever going to find another friend, right? Like, or
Yeah.
or it's like, well, what about your village people? Like what if you only saw people at church sometimes and that was a nice connection, and then sometimes you met outside of church, or
Yeah.
and it was like, how much of expectation are we putting on people to be our people?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think so. Well, and it makes me think too, like, we're always going to have missteps. Like, I imagine, you know, I don't know why I'm thinking of hiking so much, but like, as you're, you know, like walking, if you've ever like walked across like a creek or something, and you will test the rocks that you're stepping on, you know, and like some of them wiggle and, you know, you would fall if you stepped on it, but some of them are sturdy. But you wouldn't know which ones are unless you're taking steps and testing it, you know. So you have that in friendship too. Like, you can slowly be making your way, and you'll know which friends will be there for you in rough times and which ones won't. And that's something you have to discover by doing it. You know, you can't just know by looking.
Yeah.
So good job, friend. You're being brave and testing it out. So
thank you.
It's hard. Well, I love that she brought it back to like, what are the 5 things, you know, she had talked about in the last chapter, the 5 things that were present in the Garden of Eden. And now she's talking about these same 5 things that we see in cultures that experience a lot of relational closeness. So the things are proximity, transparency, accountability to others, a shared purpose, and consistency. And she related these to like 5 objects. Like fire was proximity, like being around a fire together, you know, like in the old tribal cultures. And the barrier to this is busyness, which, yes.
Yeah.
And then open doors, the goal there was transparency, and the barrier is pain or shame. Then the next one was the anvil. The goal is accountability. The barrier is pride. And the shovel, the goal is shared purpose, and the barrier is shallow or small talk. And then the next one is a table. The goal is consistency, and the barrier is conflict. And on that one, she says it takes time to build friendship and connection. We have to clock hours together over years. In Jesus' time, each school was made up of a small group of boys. We are the most transient generation of all time. How do we stay and commit and spend regular time with people even if they hurt us? I thought that one was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
And then and finding someone that wants to go back and forth, like that doesn't give up on the other side, right? Like, 'cause
yeah,
you can't make someone work through something with you.
right, exactly.
We're gonna fix this. It's
You
like,
will be my friend whether
Yeah.
you want to or not.
what's going on here? Yeah.
That
and then
probably turns into
yeah.
stalking of some kind.
Oh,
so
dear.
we just won't go there.
Well, and I think too, like just the proximity thing of just like finding people that maybe you wouldn't normally have thought of, but what if that was your
Yeah.
new friend, or not? And not saying that you have to be BFFs forever and
Right.
whatever, but a few different clients that I've had in the hair salon, they've been reconnected or have connected again with friends that used to be their neighbors, and they're like lifelong friendships. So it's just like there's
That's
something
cool.
to that proximity. So I'm just like, okay, Lord, I live by people. Help me to see the people I live by, and how can I cultivate this
Yeah.
without having a stinky fire that makes my hair smell like smoke and I have to take a shower every time. That's my real life right there. I like the marshmallows, but not the smoke. Oh.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So and then I'm like, all right, I don't have to literally do everything
Have a fire,
that Jenny
right.
says, right?
Yes,
but it's
yes.
like, well, how can I? So anyways, that's my real life thoughts. Did that?
Oh my
I
goodness.
feel like I'm not even making sense right now.
That's okay. Life doesn't make sense sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to read our verse for the day.
Okay.
Which is 2 Corinthians 1:3-5, I think is what I will read.
All right.
Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. For just as we share abundantly in the sufferings of Christ, so also our comfort abounds through Christ. And it just reminded me of a quote that Jenny has in this chapter, which she says, "You and I are to give that reconciliation and hope away to living, breathing, broken, longing people. God purposefully set you in your place and in your time to love people in such a way that they will feel their way toward him and find him." And that just reminds me of like the reason why we need those deep friendships is because on our own, it's really hard to continually point ourselves to Jesus. But
Right.
with other people, it's not necessarily easy, but it makes it easier to keep our eyes on Jesus, I think.
Yeah.
So,
well, and then just like putting yourself in places that you can find that, like, and then being available, like, well, to comfort those and then be comforted, right, by God, what
Yeah.
he's done with us. And so
Yeah.
there was the connection group leaders had a dinner, and so then there was a few of us that broke off and we were sharing what was on our hearts, and then we were praying for each other. And it was just like I was thinking in my head, like, hey, look at what's happening right now, like this is what I've been wanting. And so maybe it's different than I thought it looked like. And
Yeah.
we're not in the group that meets every week together, but we're in groups that are meeting and we're coming together still, and there can still be time together. Or
Yeah.
anyway, so I just like that, and witnessing that comforting, because we all took turns comforting each other in that moment. So it does
That's
work,
awesome.
friends.
Yes.
So
yes.
don't give up, I guess is my word of don't give up. Keep seeking,
Right?
keep pressing in. Jesus doesn't want us to be alone either. He wants us to comfort and be comforted by other people. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of our verse from last episode, Proverbs
Mhm.
3:5-6, not
Yeah.
leaning on our own understanding. That sometimes things in our lives won't look the way that we anticipated them to
No,
look, but that
no.
doesn't mean that they aren't what God has put in our path. So, all right. Well, thank you, listeners. Thank you, friend. We will be continuing our featured book, Find Your People by Jenny Allen, and we look forward to chatting with everybody again.
Yeah. Happy summertime.
All right. Bye-bye.